Okay guys, so in this video I was thinking I'm gonna show you just a fun little addition that I added to my statistics job. So let's get into it. Well, basically what I did was to add a very simple check in the job statistics job that I have, which is, well, basically all it does is that it goes on to a job site grabs a bunch of job descriptions from different job postings and just a sample. Basically, it's not getting all of them, so it's like the data is going to be, well, it's based on the first, I think, 50 hits or something like that. And then it's just going to grab the text and parse out keywords such as like language keywords and database references and SBA framework references. And so I added a little bit of an extra treat, which is this thing here, which is going to, it's basically just a regex check that checks how many years of experience, if any, is specified the job postings usually reference. Now, don't go crazy and think that this is like a universal truth or anything like this. This is a very simple little basic setup that gives you a rough, like just gives me a rough idea of how much experience most of the, you know, these posts, the job descriptions actually references. And as you can see here, I have this massive column here which is called unspecified, and basically all that is a bucket where either the job description didn't say how many years that the candidate in question should ideally have, or it just failed to find something, like a my regex could be wrong. It could also be the case that they choose their spelling issues or typos in the text, or that they choose to express themselves in a way that I don't have a regex that's going to match. And the thing to know about this is that when you're parsing dynamic text like this, usually you don't, if you wanted to do this at a professional level and like do it as if you were to run a business, this is not the way to do it. Like using regexes for this sort of stuff it's vastly, I would say, it's a very naive approach to this problem. You should probably use something like machine learning algorithms or something like that to parse this, but this is just for fun, so there you are. And what I thought was kind of interesting when all of this was said and done, I've scraped some data, as you can see here, for the past few hours. And it looks very similar to what I actually expected. I mean, of course I have this column here, which is, I was kind of expecting this to be fairly big, but from the stuff that I actually could gather, we can see here that the range, the most common range, is for prior experience is from 1 year to about 5 years, and then we have other references here and there. I mean, we don't actually know whether or not, like, we can kinda assume that this is experience. I mean, it could have been the case that my regex was bad or something, but this is at least a very good indicator, and it's very much in line with what I know from personal experience. So usually 1 to 5 years if you require prior work experience from people. So let's just have a quick look at how I did this. It's a fairly simple setup. So let's click down that. So here we are at our job statistics service again. So I've added a few things here now. So there's a gauge for years of experience, which is going to just basically give me another gauge that I can use in Prometheus to actually just log out or save a reference to these labels, and it's going to be the region, the title, and the years, and it's pretty much the same thing as the tool references. Now this is the special part here. Now this is what I was saying earlier. Ideally, I mean, this is a very naive solution to this problem. It's by far, I mean, I really encourage you, don't just like think that this is a sustainable business. Like, if you were to do this, as I said earlier, as a professional, you trying to make money from this, you would not do something like this. This is way too simple in order for it to work like properly. You would have to do have a much more elaborate setup. But what I think is nice is that even if it's just a regex, at the end of the day, I could switch this if I wanted to. I could switch this regex solution out, because I'm just getting a string, and all I really need to do is to have an abstraction on the actual parsing of that string. And this is the implementation for figuring out all the references to the experiences, or the years of experience, but I could switch this regex solution out for a machine learning algorithm or something like that in the future if I wanted to. But this is the naive approach anyway. So I have a bunch of regexes that match a sequence of characters. So if in this case it's going to be, it's a bit arcane, I will admit, but basically what it's looking for is, okay, so the first one here, okay, check if there is a one or more numbers with a possible space and then a 2 range, in other words, this thing here, because that's one of the things that I needed to figure out. So people express, okay, it's either going to be 1 year or 1+ years, or 1, 2, or like a something like a range, this sort of stuff, right? So that's basically what this does. It's just going to catch these 3 range specifiers, and then there's another little digit here followed by either a dot or a colon or something like that, because some people actually put decimals in the amount of years. So people say like 1.5 years or 1 colon or decimal point, like something. There's tons of variations. We just walked through a few of these examples, right? And yeah, and then basically it just checks if it has a years reference after that. So in other words, if it's gonna, basically this is going to match something like 1 to 5 years, and then something experience as an example. And that's exactly what I'm looking for. I'm just looking for a string, or like a segment of text that has a reference to some type of range of years, and a reference to like the word experience. And that's my naive little implementation. So other than that, I have pretty much the same setup for gathering the statistics as we have for our tools. So it's just going to go through, create a labels object, and set that on our gauge, the years of experience. And for getting the years of experience, it's fairly straightforward. As with the keywords, we simply take in the description text that we have. We run exec, which is just going to give us the matches that it can find for the provided regex. And then we're going to slice the first element, because we don't want the false match, which is the first element in the array. We just want all the group matchings. And then basically what we're going to do is we're going to find all the valid values that have a digit of some sort in it, because that's the group that has the actual years reference. And then we're simply going to replace out because usually I've found that the ranges were either declared with a plus or something of this nature. So we have a regex here to just replace out the stuff that we don't want. And then we trim everything, and what we should then be left with is an array with either just a single digit, like a number that represents the year, or a range where there's going to be 2 numbers concatenated or joined together with the word 2, or just a range indicator, or a minus, or whatever you call them. And then we're going to have this little expand range function here, which basically just checks whether or not the value that we're getting is a range, because if it's a range of years, we want to expand that. Because, I mean, if an article says that, hey, you need 1 to 2 years of experience, then basically what they're looking for is a person who has either 1 or 2 years of experience. And instead of having that range in our little dashboard, I've preferred to just keep everything in a bucket. So we'll increment each of them instead. And that's basically what's happening here. So basically all we're going to do is that we are going to split on the 2 delimiter, and we're going to be left with 2 different numbers. We're going to trim those, parse them into integers, and then we're simply going to append, or like push, all the delta between these 2 numbers into an array and return that array. So we expand that range into just an array of numbers. And then finally we're going to reduce down this, so because we're going to be left with an array of arrays, or a mixed array of values and arrays, and we simply want to concatenate everything together. So we basically flat map, if you know that term, everything down into one single dimension, one dimension, and that's about it really. And then we are going to check whether or not we have any results. If we have results, we return those. Otherwise, we're going to return a single array with the -1, which is simply going to represent that we didn't find any references to years. And that's the entire logic. And then in our little Indeed service here, all we've really done is that we have added this little thing here where our results are now returning. As we can see here, get results from page. It's simply going to return a object like as previously with the keywords, and now it's going to return years of experience. And then we simply call another, like we just append another function down here that is going to be the thing that we saw earlier. It's simply going to store this information together with the tool references. And yeah, that's it really. Let's have a look here just for completeness sake. So you can see here that we, as previously, we get the keywords, but now we're also getting the years of experience. And here are our years. We do a little bit of logging, and we simply append to this array, results array, just as we do for the keywords, and then we just add that into the result that we're going to return. And so now we're left with this little nice graph here where we have a rough idea of the common years of experience that people are asking for. So hopefully you found this interesting. Have a great day.